advertising executives were urging the government to, it says, dial up the fear.
What people want, they want acknowledgement of what has happened.
COVID was the excuse that they gave to be able to abuse their power, whereas in Canada it's been extended to everything and everyone.
Welcome once again to the Aussie Wire News. It is really important to watch today's episode to the end because the Australian Medical Practitioners Society need your signature on a COVID Royal Commission Terms of Reference submission to the Australian Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee. So please watch to the end, or if you can't, please find the link in the description and be sure to add your signature before the deadline, which is tomorrow. Before we bring you that story, Rebekah Barnett blows the lid off how the pharmaceutical companies are doing an end run around advertising bans by using polls, press releases, and a lazy, compliant mainstream media. But first of all, we share some disturbing news out of Canada, and that story is coming up right now. Here's the news. Well, 2 days ago, we saw some news out of Canada that should send a shiver down each and every one of our spines. It certainly does mine because it harks back to the worst and darkest days of the Battleground Melbourne era. We saw a completely, in my opinion, wrongful arrest, an abusive arrest, abusing not only the person being arrested, but also abusing the system. It was none other than David Menzies, a Canadian Rebel News reporter, and Australia's Rebel News reporter, Avi Yemini, joins me now to talk about it. Avi, were you surprised to see this happen?
No, firstly, thanks for having me, mate. But no, I'm not surprised that, as you just mentioned in the intro there, even in Australia here, through the COVID era, we saw a lot of that happening. COVID was the excuse that they gave to be able to abuse their power, whereas in Canada, it's been extended to everything and everyone. But I'm glad it was captured on camera. Menzies is the second best reporter of Rebel News. But no, he really doesn't. I wasn't talking about Mouse. Ezra's number one.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm really low down on that. No, but he really does some great work, and he has been targeted over the years. And you can see he's just walking up, doing what mainstream media should be doing, and that's scrumming people in power. And who's more powerful? There's only one person more powerful than the Deputy Prime Minister, and he did it really respectfully.
Yeah.
He's a great, gentle guy, Dave, and you could see that the officer literally walked into him.
It's a trap.
And then abused his power by saying, "Well, you've assaulted me now, and you're arrested for assault." When really we want to arrest you for asking the wrong questions.
Avi, we've got the video here, so there would be some viewers who aren't aware of what we're talking about. I'll play the first minute or so. I've got to tell you, this boils my blood, and I can't even watch the entire thing.
Ms. Freeland, how come the IRGC is not a terrorist group? Why is your government supporting Islam nationalism? What? Excuse me. What are you?
Look at the smile on her face. She knows.
You're under arrest for assault. You're under arrest for assault. Police, you're under arrest for assault.
I can't even keep watching. There's that little smile on her face. She knows exactly what that police officer has just done. And what boils my blood is not only just the flagrant abuse, but it looks as though they would expect to get away with this. They'd expect to not lose their job. They'd expect maybe to not even lose the court case. What does this say about the state of Canada under Trudeau, that this is just being done in broad daylight?
And I'm surprised, and I think they're just as surprised that they didn't get away with it. Because they have gotten away with that kind of behavior for so long now. But luckily, the camera caught enough. The cameraman was able to catch enough of it that it was so clear and blatant what they did from the angle that he was standing, that finally, you've seen this outrage by not only Rebel supporters or right-wingers around the world, but globally, you've seen from everyone from Elon Musk to the Conservative Party of Canada, who has made a point that in the past have behaved in similar ways. But, this is the government and the Conservative Party themselves now broadly calling it out, as well as people non-conservatives, which are looking at that and going, hold on, that seems like a bit like what they do in communist China. And to add to it, the chutzpah of the Liberal Party, that's what they are in Canada.
In Canada.
The Liberal Party in Canada is like our Labor. They answered the Conservative Party leadership, who posted it in outrage, basically painting him somehow as as some sort of they compare him to Trump in the way he treats the media, like he's the bad guy, he's mistreating the media. Because it's insane to think it's insane to think that they in 2024 that they think that they could get away with it, and that they usually would get away with it. And then on top of it, once they're getting called out by it, they still think that this trick of trying to paint the person who's called you out, the opposition leader who's called you out for it, for abusing a journalist, for asking a question, for abusing your power as law enforcement to stop somebody from asking you a question. Their only response, instead of standing up for freedom of the press, is to go, no, hold on, you're worse because you treat our bought and paid for. Remember, in Canada, they're all on government grants by the Trudeau government. The way you treat our bought and paid for media is by being rude, by calling them out for being fake news, because often Pierre, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Pierre Poilievre or whatever. Sorry, I've butchered it, I know that. But he's really good at handling the media in what they try to present it as. Look at Trump saying the same thing as Pierre, although I think Pierre does it with real class. There's a famous video of him standing there being interviewed, and he's just eating an apple, and it's just brilliant. But finally, I think so much of the world is woken up, and you can see that video has gone everywhere. Even the bought and paid for media in Canada realize that they don't like Rebel News. I'll tell you that little secret. It's a bit like here in Australia. They don't like Rebel News, but even they were forced to report this in what I would consider a fair way, because they realize that if you try to spin it any other way, like the Liberal Party there did, the public's going to turn on you. They can see exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Well, even the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have said that they're going to launch an investigation. Rebel News Canada have said that they are going to fight this. They are going to sue. But from bitter personal experience, Avi, when you were wrongfully arrested by Victoria Police and you fought them for how long to finally get an apology? The process really is the punishment, isn't it?
Yeah, look, usually I think it would be. I dare say, like, you can see already the backtracking of the police force there, which is a lot quicker than what we saw with regards to mine. Mine
Very
took
true.
a good 2.5 years to fight and win. But after I did eventually win, I'm never treated like that anymore. So I can promise you now that we've seen an admission of guilt already. But Rebel will take it all the way. And then I dare say that Dave Menzies is going to have that red carpet treatment that I seem to be enjoying since my success in Australia.
Well, we can only hope. I want to give a shout out to Rebel News. You guys did an outstanding job with the Fight the Fines here in Australia and elsewhere in the world. And I want to vocally support your fundraiser here to help David with exactly that court case. You're enjoying red carpet treatment only because you had the balls and the resources, thanks to Ezra Levant and Rebel News, but also thanks to the generosity and support of your many fans.
Absolutely.
That you were able to finally win that fight. We need to do the same thing for David Menzies here. So we'll put the link to this page as well as the link to that full video. I tell you, that video boils my blood. I struggle to watch it, but please, everybody, do watch it at least once all the way through. One, to admire how well David handles himself. So impressive, so calm under incredible duress, but also to watch the repeated dirty tactics that they tried on him. We've only scraped the surface. They tried to elicit confessions out of him. They tried to change their story right there in real time before he was even finished being arrested. They were already trying to shift the ground under his feet. Just disgusting tactics. We'll put all those links in. As I was about to call you Ezra Levant. I don't know whether you should feel complimented or whether he should feel insulted.
Poor guy.
But Avi Yemini from Rebel News Australia, thank you so much for joining us for this story.
Thanks, mate.
Well, having been an independent political commentator for now 15 years, I was about to say 14, but we're in a new year. For now 15 years, there's very little left that shocks me, but I have to admit I was rather shocked this week. Rebekah Barnett is no stranger to the Aussie Wire. She's a regular contributor of ours and does incredible public interest journalism. And one of her pieces last week actually genuinely shocked me, and I invited Rebekah on to talk us through it because, Rebekah, firstly, props to you. I consider this to be one of the most outstanding pieces of public interest journalism that I've seen in quite a long time. So let me start with that. Can you talk us through? You've blown the lid on just exactly how taxpayer money is being used to fund advertising, to fund the sales of big pharma products, and how they manipulate the media. Talk us through what you've got here.
Yeah, so look, I've just touched on two of the ways that Big Pharma harnesses public money and news media to sell their products. So in Australia, Big Pharma isn't allowed to advertise directly to the public if it's a vaccine or if it's a prescription medication, but that doesn't let them stop them from, just forging ahead with other avenues. So the first one I discussed is that you just lobby the government to recommend your product. And if you can get them to mandate it, even better. And we had that here in Australia. Mm-hmm. And then you can wrangle the government into spending public funds to advertise the products on your behalf. So there is news article after news article online. You can just Google Australian government spending COVID vaccine advertising, something like that. And you can see, so we've got 20.9 million spent on advertising COVID vaccines. If we go down further, you can see one of the campaigns, advertising agency got a $1.8 million contract.
Yeah.
You can see you go a bit further down in this Substack that I've done that it actually advertising executives were urging the government to it says dial up the fear on COVID because that would get them more advertising campaigns to sell the solution to the fear, which of course is more vaccines. And the Arm Yourself Against COVID-19 campaign, which was just one of many, was a $41 million campaign. So that's all funded by us. But it's not only that advertisements that are funded by us. We pay for the vaccines too.
Yeah. Can I just pause you there? Because this wasn't the part that shocked me. The part that shocked me is coming up in a moment, but I want to pause on this. There are restrictions that restrict the government from using public money inappropriately as well. So, for example, they can't use it for party purposes to try and get re-elected or these sorts of things. So we have a ban on the one hand of pharmaceutical products being directly marketed to consumers in Australia. We have a ban on political parties using tax money to promote themselves. And yet somehow both parties have managed to find a way around this, as you say, with pharmaceutical companies just lobbying the government to make their products mandatory and then, of course, doing public awareness campaigns. And that's how the government gets around these restrictions. In reality, around Australia, multiple hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money is spent federally or at a state level every single year advertising to you and I, our money being spent so that they can advertise to us, and they always couch it as a public service announcement. And that's what we're seeing here, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, billions over our lifetimes, of course, being spent to market to us. But that's not the most shocking thing you found.
No. So the other day, just before Christmas, actually, I was scrolling and I came across an article that said it was titled "Festive Warning as Poll Reveals Lacks COVID-19 Attitudes." And it was a story about how there'd been a poll and everyone was just slacking off with their vaccines. And everyone should be worried about that. So what did this reveal? Okay, this revealed Pharma's technique for getting news media to market their products to us. So there's 4 steps. It's very simple. Step 1, Pharma pays for market research. So that's usually just in the form of a poll. So someone called 1,000 people. You get a polling company to do it. Say, have you had a vax? Are you wearing a mask? And from that poll, they gather, not many people are vaxxing anymore. Not many people are masking. Okay, so that's step 1. They just pay for the market research. Very cheap, not a big deal. Then you move on to number 2, they craft that into a press release, and that press release would say, new research shows not very many people are taking this seriously, and with the threat of COVID, this is a concern. the Pharma then circulates that to news syndicators, and having previously worked in marketing myself, I've written these press releases. I've seen a million of them. It's always, just like research says, here's our product solution. That's how you do PR when you are selling a product. And then the news syndicator just lightly edits the press release, and then they publish that as news. So ideally for a news syndicator, they don't want to have to do too much to it. They just want to, move it around a bit, maybe throw a few expert quotes in. And then the news syndicator syndicates out to all the local news.
Yeah.
And this same article then gets published all around the country as local news. And what do you think it says? It says, oh, we have a problem. COVID's not going away, but everyone's stopped vaccinating. Oh, gee, we better everyone go and get your vaccination before Christmas. And that's news at the local news level. So it's marketing in disguise as local news.
Now, the reason this shocked me...
Very clever.
It's incredibly clever. The reason this shocked me is because I've missed it up until now. And now that I see it, I can't believe that this has been sitting right in, because how many times have I Googled a topic and there's a dozen articles that have similar headlines? It's happened over and over again. And I've never actually, I assumed they were syndicating. Obviously I understand how the news business works, but I'd never made that connection that all it takes is for them to spend a mediocre amount of money in the context of their budgets, in the context of what our market is worth to them. This is a tiny amount of money on a polling company to ring 1,000 people. I just want to walk people through the steps. If you can't see these screenshots, by the way, you're going to need to go to Rebekah Barnett's Substack. We will put the link to that in the description of this video. It is well worth your time, not just for this article, but for so many others as well. But it's so simple. They pay for the market research. They draft up a press release based on that research. You've got all the receipts in your Substack of the dates when everything happened. The Australian Associated Press, in this particular case, although this happens all the time, picks it up, lightly edits it, and releases that as news. And then that gets picked up by so many other companies, so many other news outlets, particularly local ones. Sorry, the computer's just taking a second to catch up with me there.
And they're not even changing the photos. They're just using the same headline, same photo, so...
at this point, they are literally just the market. Well, they're just the marketing arm for whoever emails them a press release at this point. This isn't journalism.
Yeah, and that is, that's how PR and marketing works when you're selling products. I used to work in a product-based business, and if you need to up your sales, there's lots of different ways you can do that. You can do ad spend on social media, or you can do grassroots marketing. Or one of the things that I used to do, just at an organic level, was craft a press release and pitch your local news with ideas, because they're not, local news journalists are always accepting pitches for ideas. So this is just that organic process, like on a mass scale, kind of just very homogenized. And it just is a lovely loophole to get around the problem of not being able to directly advertise to the public.
Well, as you say, this is relatively business as usual, but using it to specifically sidestep legislation that is designed to stop you from doing exactly that, that's a concern. Well, Rebekah Barnett, once again, I tip my hat to you. I'm shocked, but I'm simultaneously shocked that I'm shocked. I can't believe I never noticed this. I never spotted this myself. I feel a little embarrassed, if I'm honest, but thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. I will never quite see the news in the same way now that I understand what I'm looking for these sorts of tricks. Thank you so much once again. You're always amazing. I love the work that you do. We'll put the link to your Substack in the description of this video. Rebekah Barnett, thank you so much.
Thanks, Topher.
Well, the government's inquiry into COVID-19, the sham, in my opinion, inquiry, not a royal commission as was promised before the current Prime Minister was elected, is proceeding and is, quite frankly, rather meaningless. This is the government's typical attempt to try and whitewash, investigate itself, and come to the conclusion that it did absolutely nothing wrong. Well, I'm not the only person who's drawn that conclusion. There are many, many good people who are very aware that this inquiry is meaningless, and they're working to try and force the government to actually do what it promised before it was elected. That is to hold a royal commission. But importantly, with royal commissions, the terms of reference are crucial because they put limits around what that royal commission can look at, and getting those right is the first step to getting the commission to actually do its job, and to investigate. Well, there is a deadline of tomorrow, Friday, is the deadline for people to make submissions on what the terms of reference should be. And AMPS the Australian Medical Practitioners Society, have done a wonderful job of creating a set of terms of reference. And Duncan Syme, the Deputy Director, joins me now. Duncan, thank you for joining us here on the Aussie Wire.
Thank you for having me, Topher. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk about what is essentially a people's document. It's not a government or bureaucratic document. It is a document which is both immensely comprehensive and thorough, looking at, as you said, the depth and breadth and the questions that need to be asked about what has happened in what is undoubtedly the greatest public health disaster of modern Australian's history.
Well, even putting aside you and my perspective on the quality of the response, we were told relentlessly by the media and by government that COVID was unprecedented and they had to do all of these unprecedented things. It seems unthinkable to me that a government would, after doing all these unprecedented things, even if they say they got them all right, would not then go back and review and see what lessons could be learned. And indeed, we were promised that that was going to be the case. Why do you believe that hasn't been delivered on?
Well, I think you probably can look into the way bureaucracies work, and governments and bureaucrats do not want to investigate things which may show them in a bad light. I think there's a classic Yes Minister scene where Sir Humphrey Appleby says, "You never start an inquiry you don't know the answer to."
Sadly, Yes Minister was much closer to the money than I think a lot of us wanted to believe at the time, and we're watching a very bad episode of Yes Minister play out right before our eyes. Tell me a little bit about this terms of reference document. It is in fact over 100 pages long. I've got a little clip of it here. Anyone can download it. We'll give you the URL to find that in the show notes in the description underneath this video. But it's a phenomenal document, incredibly detailed. What was the genesis of this? Who decided that AMPS should be involved in doing something like this?
So basically, it was Julian Gillespie. I'm sure there were other people who were looking into it, but Julian Gillespie and his colleagues Peter Pham and Katie Ashby-Coppin. So they're all lawyers who have been very active right from the outset of these extraordinary times. They collaborated with at least 80 professional scientists, lawyers, economists, other individuals with various specializations, and put together this document in looking to see what questions were not asked and were not done in the process of all this decision making. And they came to AMPS, who the executive, and said, "Listen, we're wanting to put this document out. Will you support us in this endeavour?"
Yeah.
And we said, "Yeah, absolutely," because we also believe that there was many things that were done tremendously badly throughout this whole period, which has caused immense suffering to all Australians. And we've seen the most incredible human right and civil rights removal in this period, and we need these questions asked to make sure that this does not happen again.
Indeed. Now, the AMPS website here is showing that you're currently up to 28,000 plus signatures. I believe actually the rate at which those signatures are coming in is quite phenomenal. What are you actually up to now?
We're actually up to above 34,000.
Wow.
And that's, when you think that this document really was only launched basically on last weekend, it's a phenomenal effort. And given that obviously we're heavily censored and shadow banned to get the message out, I think Australians are thirsty to know the truth of what has happened. Who made these incredible decisions? Who did the assessment? Who was doing the risk assessments of making public health decisions which impacted on so many Australians' health and liberties, and basically turned what we thought was a democratic country upside down.
Let me push back on you for a moment, though, here. The government has said it's holding an inquiry. The government seems to think that that's good enough. Can we realistically believe that a petition like this or that a document like this is actually likely to have any impact? What's the mechanism that you're trying to use here to affect some kind of change?
Well, this is I suppose the democratic and official way of looking into government decision making and bureaucratic decision making. And I think it's important that we look at this. I mean, it's not the only thing that we need to be doing, clearly, but it is the official way you'd normally look into or review poor decision making by a government, or looking at any major issue that has created a great deal of controversy, from a political, legal, economic, and social and health position.
Now, I apologise for looking away. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, and I said what people want. They want acknowledgement of what has happened. So the people who've been injured want acknowledgement. They want accountability for the people who have made these decisions, and understand what actual due diligence that do they do before making these decisions, and depart from what was the previous pandemic plan, which was done in August 2019, which had a lot of scientific evidence behind those decisions, which basically said do not mask, do not lock down, and certainly not to break time-honoured bioethical principles by forcing populations to be subjected to a poorly tested injectable therapeutic.
Yeah, look,
they want answers, and they ultimately want justice, because we know there are a lot of people who have been damaged, if not most of Australians.
Yes, certainly. We've all been affected, that is for sure. And I think it's right that we want this looked into, and we want to understand why and whether those decisions were correct. I apologise for looking away from the screen a moment ago. I just needed to have a look at my screen here and see this a bit more close up. So this COVID-19 Royal Commission Terms of Reference document that AMPS has worked so hard on and that you're asking us to co-sign is going to the Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee. And the members of that committee include the likes of David Shoebridge and Senator Alex Antic, and Senator Andrew McLaughlin, Senator Helen Polley, and a couple of substitute members as well. Now, I know that Alex Antic has been absolutely fantastic on all of these issues, and I'm sure that he will take the opportunity. If something like this is in his hand with 100,000 plus signatures, he's not going to let that opportunity pass him by to use that to try and demonstrate to the rest of that committee that there is enormous amount of demand and an enormous amount of unanswered questions. So that for me is really the mechanism of action. I've interviewed Alex many times before, Senator Alex Antic, and we've talked about the fact that him being in Parliament is great, but having the clear and obvious support of the people is what really enables him to have some influence and have some clout and really maybe get some things done. And this is an opportunity to do exactly that. Look, I encourage everyone, we'll put the link to the AMPS Red Union website and to the correct page to be able to find this. Very, very simple to add your signature to this particular document. Let's get this in to that committee. Let's get this in the hands of Senator Alex Antic. With over 100,000 signatures, there's less than a day left, so please help to spread the word. And thank you so much to Duncan Symes for coming on the Aussie Wire.
Thank you, Topher.
Thank you for watching the Aussie Wire News. Be sure to click on the link in the video description to add your signature to the AMPS Royal Commission Terms of Reference submission. We release new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. You can catch up on past episodes at theaussiewire.com. Follow all our socials via @theaussiewire, and please support us by becoming an insider. The link for that is in the description. I'm Topher Field, and this is the Aussie Wire.